So, welcome to our panel, Printing with Resin with Kohalu, Liliphae, and Rembulin.
Yeah, and we're doing this panel for Kin-Yoobi Con. Kin-Yoobi Con is a small convention that has been running for, I think it's 10 years now, and they've stayed small and humble, and we love doing things for them every year, so they're virtual this year, again, so we decided to help out. Yes. And we're going to talk about resin today.
Yeah, so here are just some examples of resin prints that we've done. Here is a mini from D&D. You can see a comparison of size by my thumb over here.
Is that your thumb? Oh,
that's
it's very dirty.
Dog in the background.
Here we've got a little sculpture on the left of Daphne and Apollo, maybe. Here's a sculpture from Hero Forge that we've printed.
Oh, these are wedding toppers that we did. We got these as a custom commission. Somebody wanted their D&D minis blown up and for the top of their cake.
Here's a trophy kind of a D&D mini character I did.
Hey, we make these. We hand make these.
Yeah, so everything you see here is all 3D resin printed. Something that we'll be talking about, how to do this yourself. And just to show you that we kind of know what we're doing, more or less.
A little bit.
Here is a commission I did for Riot Games on one of their projects. So this is the original print that I made, and then I made molds from this, and these are all casted from the original. And here's an example of how resin printing is can be auxiliary to the main prop. Here, the only resin printed part is the gemstone.
Oh yeah, do you remember that one?
This is, you know, a Sailor Moon wand here. We printed it hollow for the client's special request. Here's like an example of what you can do with the original print, and then after a little bit of post-processing. So, what we're going to talk about today is, what is it? What is resin printing? How does it work? What printers should you get? What is the process? How do you do it? Where do you get models? How to make the supports? Printer safety? How to actually print the piece? Post-production tips and trips, and some final questions. We're not going to go super deep into all of these topics because each of these is, you know, an hour-long video explanation in itself. But we're going to try and get the viewer here to the point where you can start it yourself and you won't be entirely clueless as to what you're doing, right?
And we have Rembulin Cosplay here with us in the panel to pipe in every time if she wants, if she has a curiosity as a normie, because a lot of people aren't very familiar with resin printing. They know about 3D printing, but 3D resin is still something that is not as common. So you may hear her pipe up every now and again to be your mouthpiece.
I'm actually really glad to be part of this because I've been debating getting a resin printer for a while anyways.
Alright, so what is resin printing? So there's actually a lot of different types of resin printing, but the one that is most relevant to today's printers, that almost all of the ones that you can buy use something called MSLA, mass stereolithography. How that works is you have a screen at the bottom. Think of it like your cell phone screen in that it can turn certain pixels off and certain pixels on, alright? And the pixels that turn on are when it is shown to the resin will cure just that little part of resin. And
it's flash curing.
Yeah, flash curing. And then what the build plate will do, it drops into your resin vat and it squishes it into just like a 5 micrometer kind of a squish there, and there's like just a really tiny amount of resin between the screen and the bed, and then it will cure just that layer takes it up, squishes it again, but slightly higher, then it'll cure the next tiny bit of resin.
It also prints upside down, that should be noted.
Yeah. But we'll get more into that later. So, in a comparison, what is SLA versus FDM printing? So SLA is what we're calling resin printing, like stereolithography. FDM, which is fusion deposition modeling, is the regular, what people are talking about with 3D printing, with the spools of plastic.
Yeah, the spools of filament.
Yeah, spools of filament using XYZ machines here, or this is a Delta machine, and then these are the resin machines on the left. So they are both good for a lot of different things, not the same things though. They both have their strengths over the other. So with resin printing, you're looking at much, much higher resolution models. For example, like you can print minis with them. You can print like
dice.
You can print dental stuff. You can.
Oh yeah. So I got a crown made a couple months ago, 3D printed tooth.
Wow.
Yeah. So they had a resin printer with porcelain.
Yeah, they print.
Wow.
They can print like dentures and stuff. Things that need really, really high precision. And resin prints, depending on your resin, can also be very strong.
Well, I'm chewing on ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, they tend to be much smaller than an FDM machine, and consequently, like resin machines on the same scale as like a mid-size FDM printer can be like much more expensive because of how the technology works. One thing that resin printers do better than FDM machines is it's potentially much faster. It can be slower though. The speed of resin print is 100% based on the height of the model. Like, if it doesn't matter how dense the model is, if it takes up the entire build plate, or if you're only using just a tiny amount, the height is the only thing that will affect the print, the time of how long it takes to print. Whereas, on one of these XYZ machines, the volume of the print and the surface area matters. Like a big print will take a lot longer than a smaller print will, which is not the case with resin, because you're just doing the whole layer at once. Whereas this, you're doing a string of resin, or a string of plastic. However, with FDM printing, it's a lot less toxic material you're dealing with.
Yeah, the resin printer has to be outside. You cannot have that in the house.
Rather, like, it can be inside,
You shouldn't.
But like, windows open, mask on, gloves on, no touchy.
Probably a fan.
Yeah, a fan, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like with the plastic printings, no fumes, no cleanup with cleaners and stuff, and getting the supports off much easier. And overall, like, filament is a lot cheaper than resin is. So with the generally same size of prop, or like if you want to make bigger props, it'll be a lot cheaper to do with filament than with resin. However, with these SLA printers, it's a lot easier to set up the actual machine, much easier to maintain, much more reliable.
Oh yeah, they break a lot less.
Yeah, because with these machines, there's only one moving part. That's the Z-axis. It lifts it up, puts it down, and it doesn't need to be like changed at all. Whereas with FDM printers, oh my god, because there's so many moving parts and they all need to be in perfect concert, there is a lot more room for things to break and mess up. Everything needs to be calibrated. You need to have your bed leveled. You need to have your motors going. Like, just, there are a lot more points of failure.
We have 3 broken right now.
Yeah, and
Oh no!
just the troubleshooting on FDM printers is vastly more difficult than SLA printers.
They'll be repaired eventually, but the resin printers still going strong, and the filament ones need a little bit of help. So that's usually how it is.
Yeah, another cool thing with SLA printers is that you can print gemstones and transparent things with like really minimal cleanup to make them look like they were cast out of resin. All right, let's move on.
I would like to say that there is kind of clear filament now for 3D printers.
Yeah, it's clear, but it's not like crystal clear, which you can get with resin. All right, so let's see what printer to get. Well, I can't tell you what printer to get because by the time you're watching this, like all of my recommendations are probably obsolete. But what you need to think about with your printer is like, what are you going to print? Are you going to print minis for D&D? In which case you don't need a big printer. Any of the cheapest printers will probably do. If you want to make cosplay props, then you'll probably want something more mid-range. Also, the XY resolution does matter. You want something with good resolution. In this case, like, the smaller the number, the better. Right now, I think the best resolution you can get is the Frozen Sonic Mini 4K, which is less than 50 micrometers per pixel. Because even if a resin printer says it's like 2K, 4K, that says how many pixels are on the screen, which will give you a better resolution. But if you have a bigger screen, each of those pixels may not necessarily be smaller than, a smaller screen. So that's something to think about. But as of today, these are my recommendations for just general prop makers.
Well, we have the Anycubic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and had a very good results with that one, evidently, because it's our dice machine.
Yeah.
It makes dice all day.
Yeah, the one we use all day long is the Anycubic Photon Mono X, which we'll be showing you pictures of later. But other ones I might recommend are the Frozen Sonic Mini, Elegoo Mars Pro if you just want to get your toe dipped into this technology. And if you're really serious about making big props with this, then the Frozen Transform or the Pyopoli Phenom.
How big is that? How big is that?
So this is the Pyopoli Phenom right here.
We don't have room for that.
Oh, wow.
And what?
Yeah, so compare it to the
one?
guy. This is Anycubic Predator that she modified.
Why is it so tall? Why does it look like that?
She made a mod for this so she can make real big masks.
Oh, okay. I see.
And another thing that you'll need to get is a washing and curing station on top of this and resin. So like, this is not the final price of it. You need the printer and resin and the curing station and these supplies. All right. Let's move me so you can read. All right, so you need filters and a funnel. These will actually come together. You will get the funnel with the filters, and this is to filter your resin back into the bottle for when you want to change your resin, change the next color. Because you don't want to pour resin directly from your vat into the bottle again, because you might have like supports that came off or like cured residue that you don't want to put back into the bottle, because if you have a residue from before or like a shard of a print from a previous print and then you start a new one, when the print bed comes down, it'll crush that into your screen and you can break your screen that way.
This is why I like PLA printers.
Also, you want some nitrile gloves.
Yeah, you don't want to touch the resin.
So nitrile specifically, latex not as good because nitrile is like like the resin won't go through nitrile. If you the resin can go through other gloves. You want paper towels. You want a table cover for your table. Like you must assume that you will spill resin all over your table. Like, assume that this is going to happen and take precautions based on that. 'Cause if you never spill, great, but if you do, then you will be, covered. Because getting resin all over your stuff can be a problem. As well, because resin is UV activated, if you have like a window open and sunlight is streaming in, that liquid resin on your table will very soon become hard resin on your table. So just something to keep in mind. You don't necessarily need an ultrasonic cleaner for if you have a wash and cure station. I just like to have both to really, really clean the resin.
So a fun story about that is I had a jewelry cleaner that I got for Christmas like 10 years ago from Sharper Image. And that's what we were using after 10 years to wash our dice when we first started printing them. It was this little tiny Sharper Image jewelry cleaner.
Yeah, ultrasonic cleaners.
Yeah, they do work, yeah.
Yeah, typically used for, jewelry, glasses, whatever.
And DVDs.
But you can absolutely use them for resin. And it's actually the only way to get some really, really fine resin prints cleaned. As well, you need the cleaner. I use both Simple Green and IPA. So some resins, we'll talk about this in a moment, are like water washable. I don't know how much I believe water washable. I think you should still use cleaner. But in this community, you need something called IPA, not the beer. This is isopropyl alcohol, 99%. It's just concentrated alcohol. It will dissolve the resin that's uncured on your model, and then the alcohol itself will just evaporate off, so you don't need to like clean it with water or anything.
Well, and a fun thing also about the IPA is after the print is done, this is what I use to clean mistakes off the dice.
Yeah, IPA is a cleaner for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I use it to remove body paint.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, it's also an antiseptic for first aid.
Yes.
So it is not toxic on the body. You can use it to clean yourself.
And of course you need resins. So, there are many types of resins. There are opaque resins, which is just a solid color, white, black, skin, whatever. There's transparents, which I prefer to use for pretty much everything. It doesn't really matter what type you get, and as well, you can mix them. You can mix and match resins, whatever you want. If you want a stronger model, but of a certain color, you can mix in this tenacious resin, more expensive, but it's clear. For example, I mix it with smoky black here, and it makes the dice like strong and supple. So so if you're using certain opaques, I believe the curing time can be slightly higher. It's just like, I generally tend to prefer keeping to a certain, I guess, family of resins, because you can kind of make your settings based on that. Some resins take longer to cure than others, though it's not a big deal. Anyways, where do I get models from now that we need actual stuff to print, right? So, you can commission them, from Etsy or Fiverr.
Or us.
Or us. Yeah, you can, on Etsy, people sell models of specific cosplays. For example, here, I'm selling this. On Fiverr, you can commission people to make certain models. If you want minis, you can make your own mini off of HeroForge up here, for example. And you can buy the files directly from HeroForge. Here's an example of one that I've got that I blew up and then printed.
And then spray painted gold.
Yes.
Spainted. That's what I'm going to say now.
There are websites that you can just get them off for free, like my Mini Factory, Thingiverse.
Yeah, Thingiverse has a lot of free models that you don't have to pay for.
And there are actually a lot of minis Patreon people who make like 10 high-quality minis every month, and they will also pre-support them for you for a small fee. Or you can make them yourself using Blender, Fusion 360, ZBrush. I prefer Fusion 360 for my stuff because I focus on props and like hard surface modeling. If you want to make something more organic, you should learn ZBrush or Blender. I'm trying to learn Blender right now. It is a struggle. Alright. So let's move up here.
There we are. We just keep moving around.
So, you can't simply pop a model in and then print it straight out. What you need, like, the printer doesn't understand models. It understands
Layers.
like layers. You need a slicer. So the two big slicers these days are Lychee and Chidubox.
There's a slicer called Lychee.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Lychee's my favorite.
Yeah, so I prefer Chidubox because that's just what I've been using the past year.
But Lychee.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving over to Lychee, but I can't really say what is better or the other, one or the other.
It depends on the person.
Yeah, so let's look at Chidubox real quick. And here is a mini that I've already supported. Let's make another one here. So just real quick, when you are supporting your model, just rule of thumb, you kind of want it slanted. You want the face to be up. Like, the part of your model that you want to be smooth is the part that you don't want it to be supported against. So when I have a mini, I always have the face up so I don't have anything like touching it. Whereas the bottom, you see, it's okay to put supports on because you don't see the back, you don't see the bottom. So you need something that will like anchor your model
to the bed,
right? As well. For example, here, let's go down. So see this part, this is what we call an island. So if a part of the model comes up and there's nothing beneath it,
it'll fall.
Then it falls, like nothing, it's not attached to anything. So you need each of these islands attached to the bed. Like so.
Are all those little dots the islands?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can, like, the software can kind of detect them somewhat, but you really do need to do this just manually. And then there's bigger supports, smaller supports based on what parts you need. But to learn more about that, go to 3D Printing Pro. As his name, like, his name is accurate. He is a pro at this, and he explains it well. More than I will. So that's just the basics of it. Alright, safety first. As we talked about before, resin is toxic. Do not let it onto your skin. Do not let it in your lungs.
Whoops. Oopsie.
Print outdoors if you can. So we actually have a tent that we have our printers inside because we want it outdoors, but we also don't want it like in the weather, right?
Yeah, so we want it protected, because if it gets rained on, it will get ruined.
Yeah. And when you're dealing with this, wear natural gloves, wear a mask if you're not outdoors, and replace your nitrile gloves often. Like, you pull them off from the outside and then sort of let the glove come into itself, and then the resin is contained within the glove. And assume that you're going to spill and be prepared for that. Alright, let's start to actually print the piece. So this is our our printing station here. You can see the...
I'm so glad you cleaned it. You cleaned the station for this presentation. I'm not used to it looking like that, but it looks wonderful.
Yeah. So here you see the tent. You have kind of a red tint in these pictures because we have a red tent. But here you see I've added some handles to the UV. So like these come in kind of UV cages, or because if any UV light gets into it from the outside, like the sun, then
it'll harden.
It'll harden. So these are protected by the UV cages, and you don't want UV light getting out either from the inside, because it will hurt your eyes. Yeah, so just load your files onto the USB stick there, and then have it go. And you see here, it prints upside down. So it kind of like pulls the print out from the resin vat. Once you're done with that, you pop it into your cleaning station here.
Is that simple green in there? There you go.
Let's move this over here. So I have a 3-part cleaning station because we just do this so much. So the first vat is simple green here, and then I put it into the ultrasonic cleaner. This is...
That's the one from Sharper Image.
Yeah, filled with IPA. And then I put it into a second IPA vat here. And then let them dry for, well, at least an hour. Just depending on my schedule, maybe I'll leave it there for a day or two. Completely unnecessary. And then you cure it.
And then after they're cured, they are delivered to me, where I paint them. For
Yes.
these ones in particular.
Yeah, so this you see here is a cleaning and curing station. So here, it's actually the same machine between these two pictures. So this is in cleaning mode, and then this is in curing mode. And let's show a quick video.
Hide your porn.
Hide the porn, yep. Of it curing. Yep. There it goes. That's what it looks like when it's curing. So what it is doing is blasting the models with UV light from all angles. This will harden up the surface because once you've cleaned it, it's still kind of... It has a little bit of a give to it, and you just want to make sure it's all good. All right. So this is the IPA that I use. 99%. First aid antiseptic.
Don't drink it. It's not that kind of alcohol.
There you go. So we've got some tips and tricks for you. First thing is for organic prints, you don't need to clean it before you cure it. So if we go way back here, this here on the right is an example of a model that I just carefully took the supports off of, and then while it still has that layer of residual resin on it from the print bed, you cure it, and you cure that layer of resin so it stays really glossy, and then you clean it again. And it'll keep that glossy cure you see kind of there. Another thing you should get is a Wham Bam Flex plate here. And so when you take the print off, it is really, really cured onto the build plate, right? So you take it off from the supports, but you still have this bed of resin there that you need to chip off with a chisel. With a flex plate, you just take off the magnetic flex plate and then done. So much easier. Get a flex plate, it will change your life. Another thing you need is a screen protector. So I use a screen protector for an iPad. You see here, it goes on top of your screen, because what can happen is the FEP, which is like the clear underside of your bed here, or the resin vat, it can become punctured, it can wear out just in the process of printing, and if resin gets through the FEP, it will cause it. Oops.
Whoops. Yeah, like
Oops,
you're
yeah.
explaining,
Yeah,
but you didn't move it.
I'm explaining, but I didn't move us.
There you
yeah.
go.
So, it can cause resin to cure onto the screen itself, and then trying to get cured resin off of a screen is just a nightmare. Unless you have a screen protector, in which case you just replace the protector. There you go. $500 crisis averted.
Oh yeah, that would be an expensive misstep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any questions about that?
Is there like there are obviously like multiple different types of screen protectors. Like, is there a particular one that works best, or would be the most safest?
So I just like the Super Shield's iPad protector. The only thing you need to be careful of is if the screen protector will also block UV light, because you don't want it to do that. You want it to let the UV through. Otherwise, you can use another spare sheet of FEP or iPad protector, whatever. These are super cheap, and a little bit of prevention can save you a lot of cure.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we had a question from other people, or from before this panel, and they asked, what is the hardest thing to print? So when it comes to resin printing, it's not really a matter of difficulty as much as it is with FDM printing. Like with FDM, there actually are hard things to print because of the mechanics of how this works. You have so many moving parts and like things going around that like, things can fall, things can move. The difficulty in resin printing is more in setting up your
Station?
No, not the station. It's setting up the supports. And it's kind of an art form here, like getting really good supports, because yeah, move us again. So if you put the supports on too heavily, then you can damage your model, because supports will leave like little pocks when you take them out. But if you make really light supports that won't leave pocks, it also might not support your model enough. For example, here you have these little fingers, and if the support is too light, then the finger won't show up, and then you have a print failure. Because like you can have models that come out with like no arms because the supports didn't anchor them to the bed.
We had one that was missing its face.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? The face fell off. We should have brought that one. That's a great example. It had no face, but everything else was perfect.
Yeah, so the difficult part is in making the supports well, like getting the balance between heavy supports so it is sufficient for the model, but light enough that it won't pock the model and leave holes there. So to that question, the most difficult print I've ever done was this one here, because you see these like just super delicate leaves with like the stems there. Just
Wow.
getting all of that just right was a challenge. So models with a lot of teeny tiny details, a lot of islands like this, or like feathered wings, because you need to have support 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each feather that comes up. So those are the
Wow.
most difficult models. The easiest ones are like gemstones. You just print them flat on the bed. Thank you for watching our panel. Hope you guys learned something.
Yay!
Please visit our Etsy page, buy our stuff. 3D props at Kohalu. Oh,
and
3D
wait, Rambulin does commissions, don't you?
Yeah, sewing commissions. Yeah, I don't do 3D commissions.
Yeah, so.
But I do sewing commissions.
Well, hopefully people can commission you for sewing things to go with their resin printing things.
Hey!
Hey!